The Worst Podcast Ever can also be listened to on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and many more. Links in the description below.
So much about
What would you say if I turned into all the things you love to hate? And on my way comes crashing through the rotten beams and window panes.
Hey everybody, what is going on? It is episode 39, and this is, in fact, the worst podcast ever. Hello everybody, I'm your host, as always, Dan Brosman, and it's good to be back. It's good to be with you guys, back on the mic. It's always good to be back. Unfortunately, in between all my episodes lately, there have been large gaps, but, it is what it is. I got a little bit to talk about today, as always. Hey, here we go. Do we think that I'm going to get through a episode without, coming down on Star Wars? I don't know. Maybe. You're just going to have to wait and see. You're going to have to wait and see. How's everybody doing? I hope everyone's doing good. I'm doing good, finally feeling healthy, went through the holiday season, with everybody getting sick and not sick and then after, and everybody seems to be okay right now. And I'm going to knock on wood. It is what it is. It's wintertime in the Midwest, and for us here, I don't know where the rest of you guys are, but it is cold. I know I always talk about the weather. It's just, I don't know, maybe that's a Midwest thing. My YouTube channel is the Midwest Media Show. And in the Midwest here, it is cold right now. I think we've been in the single digits the last handful of days, and at night going, below zero. So it's fun. It's fun. I like that stuff. Aside from this year when we were all getting sick, most years, we don't get sick constantly. And I love it when it gets cold and nasty out. I don't know. Everybody at work says I'm crazy, that I'm an idiot. And, there's something to be said about that. I'm not going to say that they're not wrong, but it is what it is. I hope all of you guys are staying inside. If it's cold where you're at, staying warm. Just enjoying the rest of winter. Spring's going to be here before you know it, but until then, we have some things to talk about, some things that I'm behind on here. So what is it that we're going to talk about today? Well, we're going to talk about the Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power, because I finally sat down and watched all of that, and we're gonna talk about that. Willow, I watched Willow. Are any of you guys fans of Willow, the movie from the 80s with Val Kilmer and Warwick Davis? If you are, maybe this is gonna be for you. And Bad Batch, they've come out with some episodes of their new season, and we're gonna talk about what I think of that too. As far as gaming goes, Atari has once again, said that it's releasing some things coming up, another console. So, and amongst other things, we're going to talk about that as well. We're also going to talk about, and usually I don't talk about something like this, but YouTube has some things changing in it, and what's acceptable and what's not. And it seems like this has not a lot to do with gaming channels, but it seems like in this instance, it's going to affect a lot of what a lot of gaming channels do. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And what else are we going to talk about? There was something else. I didn't write it down, but hopefully we'll remember by the time we get to the end. So let's talk about Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power. Now, let me give you a little background on my fandom of the Lord of the Rings. I didn't become a fan of Lord of the Rings until the movies. You know, I watched the cartoon back in the day. You know, I never read the books, but you know, the movies, you know, the Fellowship of the Ring, the what was the second one? The Two Towers, and then Return of the King. I absolutely love. Peter Jackson did a wonderful job, I believe, on all those movies. I watch them every year, multiple times, and in fact, you know, I have it on regular DVD. Well, because I have it on regular DVD and Blu-ray, but I have on the Blu-ray set I got. It only has the extended version. It doesn't have the extended version for any of them, but I like the extended version on the Twin Towers because there's a couple smaller scenes in there that they didn't have in the normal theatrical release that I really enjoy. My favorite is the Two Towers. I love the Two Towers. That at Helm's Deep, that battle at the end is just badass, but I loved all of them. And then, you know, they did the Hobbit movies, and I enjoyed the Hobbit movies. Not nearly as much as I enjoyed Lord of the Rings, but I thought it was pretty good. I know some people weren't, you know, all that crazy about it, but I thought they did a fairly decent job with them. And then Amazon came and said, well, you know, we're making this, you know, TV show. It's going to be probably the most expensive TV show ever made as far as a show with episodes. And, you know, we're putting it on Prime. And everyone was like, hell yeah, you should. Why not? And, you know, but, you know, along with fandom, that's a very tight rope there. And, you know, when you have a beloved franchise, you got to be careful. You got to be careful. You got to try and be, you know, somewhat, you know, faithful to what's come before. Because you're going to have a big fan group. And if you're not, you know, you're gonna stir up the hornet's nest. So I was late to the game on this one a little bit. It had been out for a little while because I was finishing something else. I forget what else I was watching. Oh, I was watching Yellowstone and some other stuff. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, and I had been hearing, you know, it's beautiful, it looks good, but it's just okay. It doesn't feel like Lord of the Rings. It doesn't, you know, this and that. And maybe that's kind of the reason why I didn't jump into it right away. I was a little nervous that I wasn't going to like it because I like I said, I really do like getting down on the original movies. So one day I'm like, you know what? I want to get down with this, and then after that I'm going to do Willow. So here we go. This is what we're going to do. Oh, because I was watching Andor. And then Yellowstone, and then once those were over, I went into Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. Anyway, so I sat down and I started watching these things. And I had started it like a month beforehand, and I couldn't make it through the first episode. I don't know, for whatever reason, I just wasn't in the headspace. And I was really worried at that point that I just wasn't liking it. So I came back and I started watching. I finished the first episode and I got a couple episodes in. And I was like, you know what? I am really enjoying this show. I'm like, can I see what other people are saying? Yeah, kind of. I mean, but, you know, this is an opinion show. People say that's not my thing. That's their opinion. They don't like it. They don't think it's good. That's their opinion. I say I don't like it or I like it. That's my opinion. I like it. I don't understand the people that were like, I'm out. I just can't. I can't do it anymore. I didn't even. I thought it was done well enough to where it would be like, well, you know, maybe you could at least make it through to the end. But I really liked it. Now, like I said, maybe I'm just not on that fan level, you know, because with Star Wars after, oh, wait, no, we can't say that. Screw it. I'm going to say it anyway. When I got to The Last Jedi, I didn't watch The Rise of Skywalker because I was like, well, that's it for me. You know, I did come back with The Mandalorian and all that, but, you know, so I understand when people get touchy about their franchises. They're the stuff that they really hold dear. But as far as I go with this, it is I thought it was very, very good. Does it have as much of a Lord of the Rings feel as like the Lord of the Rings movies? Yes and no. You know, it's a TV show. But let's go over, some of the things here. I like the history of the elves here. How it explains, like, where the elves kind of came from, the Undying Lands, I think it's called, and why they came to, Middle Earth. Now, just to let you guys know, there's probably going to be spoilers. I'm not going to go into super detail about this, so if you want to stick around, you'll probably be okay. But if you're like, well, I've really been meaning to get around to this, I don't want it to be ruined, this is probably where you want to step out. So yeah, I really enjoyed like the whole lore behind the elves, and that seems to be kind of the driving factor to a lot, or the driving force behind a lot of what goes on here. It's like the history and the elves, where, in the Lord of the Rings movies, it was more about like the hobbits and men, because it was the time of the men was coming, and the elves were leaving to go back home. All of them, they were leaving Middle Earth, and here they are coming to Middle Earth, and then they're here, and then they have this battle with the guy that was the head bad guy before Sauron was the head dude. And this whole thing's leading up to what the original movies talked about, and kind of getting there. I don't think it goes up to the last movies, but like maybe Isildur and all that, and Condor when Sauron was beat at the beginning of the first movie. Anywho, I'm just rambling here. I liked the island nation of Numenor. I thought that was beautiful. I loved the culture. I loved how it was kind of like better than any of the other kind of kingdoms of men that I've seen so far. Now look, I'm going to say some stuff, and it may sound like I don't know what I'm talking about as far as, the history and legend of this world, and that would be true. So if you guys are screaming into, well, no, because these guys become these guys or whatever, I just don't know. I don't know. And that's kind of the magic of it for me, is I don't know where this is going necessarily. I don't know who becomes who, and that's kind of exciting. But Numenor, I love it. I love the kind of the feel of it, and the meshing of men and the culture of elves from back in the day, and the relationship that they had with the elves and don't anymore for whatever reason. I thought that was really well done. We get to see the hobbits and kind of how they began before they really landed in the Shire. At least that's what I'm feeling here. They were more of a nomadic race, and then I'm guessing at some point in one of the upcoming seasons, the next seasons, that they're gonna settle down in the Shire somewhere or whatever. So we'll see. Or maybe where they're at right now is the Shire. I don't know, but yeah, that was kind of interesting. Little bit of peer into how the hobbits. Well, the hobbits were always around, but how they became the hobbits that we know in the Lord of the Rings. Let's see. Oh, the wizard. I like seeing how we're kind of seeing what becomes of the wizards, like how they come around. Because at first, and that was a little confusing. Like it's like this guy dropped out of the sky by one of the hobbits, and he's a full-grown man. And I kind of thought he was Sauron, but then it turns out that he's not, and it looks like he's gonna be like what the wizards become. I think he's going to be like one of the first wizards. I could be wrong on that. I could be totally off base. But I'm really interested to see like what becomes of this guy. And, he's like, that's the one thing. They haven't given it away too much. And maybe everything that I think is going to happen will happen. But for right now, there's been a couple things that as the season went along, I was wrong about. And then later on, I'm like, oh, okay. Okay, well, okay, yeah, I see. I see. And let's see, what else? And then I'm not sure about what. Oh, yeah, and so like at the end, you kind of find out who Sauron is. At least I think that's what they were saying, and that's who it was. And that kind of threw me for a little bit of a loop, because I was like, I do know a little bit about the history of him, and I don't remember it being just a man. I thought he was kind of like an elf kind of looking guy or whatever. And in this one, they got him just being a man, it turns out at the end. And which, whatever. I mean, it wasn't a huge deal, but I thought this guy was going to go this character was going to go a different route, and then it didn't, and it went a totally different way, and which is okay. You know, I mean, I hate, watching something and being able to figure it out right away. So, we're just going to have to wait and see, because they kind of leave it there right there, and you're like, oh, that's who he is. And then season's over with. And the thing with that is, it's going to be another 2 years before the second season comes out. Because they made this season, waited for it to come out, and they just started making of the new season. And they says it's going to be 2 years. And it's like, I don't get that. And I worry for this show. I worry for this show because of that. Because another show that I liked that kind of suffered from that was Westworld on HBO that just got canceled. And they took so long to get the last season out, and it was a show that you had to keep track of. Like it was very, I don't want to say complex, but I mean, it wasn't a show that, you could get up and then come back, miss half an episode, and understand what's going on. You probably want to pause it. You don't want to miss it because, otherwise you're not going to remember what's going on. Westworld took forever to get the last season out, and I didn't even watch this past season because when I started watching it, I'm like, where were we? What was going on? I don't even remember now. And I was like, do I want to go back and watch the last season? I don't know. I'm like, I probably will at some point and then go into this one. But now they canceled it because nobody watched this last season. It's like, well, yeah, you waited for fucking ever. So I kind of worry that the Lord of the Rings is going to fall into that. Now, that's a little bit of apples to oranges there because Lord of the Rings already has, a big following. But 2 years, man, people are going to be like, when that next season comes out, people are going to be like, oh, yeah. I'm like, I forgot about this. And then you're going to have to get the hype back up. You wait 2 years to get, to put out that second season. It's going to take a while. You're going to lose all that hype. And now you're going to have to build it all back up. So at least that's what I think. So after I was done with Lord of the Rings, and actually, while I was watching Lord of the Rings, people kept asking me, "Hey, man, have you seen Willow? What do you think of Willow?" And I'm like, "No, man, I haven't watched it yet. I want to get through, Lord of the Rings. It took me a little while to get through them because they do have long episodes, which I really enjoyed. I loved that, seeing as though like I'm used to watching stuff on Disney Plus. And, all the episodes on there, it'd be 35 minutes or something like that. So I did enjoy, watching a show that had longer episodes. But so finally, after I finished Lord of the Rings, I was like, I'm going to jump into Willow because I really love, the original movie from back in the 80s with Val Kilmer. And, what do I think about Willow? Well, I didn't hate it and I didn't like it. I gotta be honest with you. I finished the season about a week and a half ago, and I'm still not sure what I think. If I like it or if I don't like it, I'm just going to say right now, it's okay. He's all right. So, I mean, I could do pros and cons here. Let's say, one of the pros, I love Warwick Davis in it. The guy who plays Willow. He's so good. I love that guy as an actor. He plays Willow so well. He was probably the best part of the whole show. They have a character in there, Borman, who is absolutely super awesome. He's the best character in the show. Probably a little bit better than Willow. Just because the way they write him. I love how funny this guy is. And he's a big dude. He's like some Middle Eastern actor or whatever. But this dude is jacked. But he's a big guy. He's a jacked guy. But the way they write him, he's so funny. And I love that. So that definitely kept me interested. So I guess we'll talk about, where we are in this. So this is later on. Obviously, Val Kilmer, because of everything that's going on with him and the cancer and he can't talk anymore, he's not technically in this show. But, he married and they had a princess and they had a prince. But then they were supposed to be taking care of Elora Danan, which she was, going to come and be like the princess, the queen of everything. And she was going to be the one that brings the magic and just makes everything right. And she was the baby, Elora Danan was the character that was in the original movie that they were trying to, protect. But, Val Kilmer had his own kids, and I'm trying to think of the queen's name, because I can't remember. She was the redhead, but she's in it, the same actress. And this is, I should have wrote all this down. There's me. I wrote notes down, didn't write down any of the names here. But anyway, so him and her have a son and a daughter. Okay. And the son gets kidnapped by the people that want, Elora Danan and all this other stuff. And so now you have a quest and they're all going, and the princess is going after him. And the princess is, I don't know, she's in her like late teens. And I got to be honest with you. So here's the thing. As much as I like Borman's character, as much as I like Willow's character, I cannot stand the princess's character. Oh my God. Every time she is talking or on the screen, I just want to choke myself out. So like I can be unconscious during her time in front of the camera. I'm like, she is annoying AF. I'm like, God, just shut up. Who wrote this? And that's the thing here. I understand that with Willow, it was kind of it was in that 80s, kind of sweet spot movie where it was, it was kind of this, fantasy world that wasn't necessarily Earth. It was somewhere else, but you kind of get a lot of those movies that are kind of sci-fi fantasy where it was with the magic and maybe a little bit of sci-fi in there, although I don't know if you could say there was sci-fi in this. But, and there comes a certain feel, some sort of, I don't know, like medieval feel to everything, with swords and shields and magic and all that. And this thing kind of, it feels like that sometimes and sometimes doesn't. And part of the reason that it doesn't feel like that is because of the writing. It's people that are, the writers write like we talk today. Okay. And then they get people without accents. Look, I know Val Kilmer didn't have an accent. Okay. But here's my thing. When you're going to do a fantasy movie that has like in the medieval times. Get people with accents. Get like English actors. Get whatever. So it kind of feels to that. This it just feels like you're getting like the American kid, the American actor in there, and they're just like, and she, the princess had a line that was like, "You got to get your shit together." I'm like, "Get your shit together?" I'm like, that's it. Just, and I know that kind of sounds little and small, but it's a whole bunch of stuff that takes you out. Okay, it takes you out, and I'm gonna tell you the one thing that the way I describe this to people when they ask me, it doesn't feel like Disney made Willow. You know what it feels like made Willow? It feels like a CW show. It's like one of those teen whatever shows that CW, those endless crap heap of shows that they turn out that are just horrible. They just get a whole bunch of like early 20 actors to be teenagers that all look fantastic, that are all like model grade looks, but it's just a shitty show. That's what this kind of feels like. And it really just takes you out of it. And the other thing that takes you out of it is the music. And I'd heard about this, but I was like, oh, okay. They like to put in current music, mostly at the end in the credits, but it really takes you out of it. I think I heard like the Willow theme maybe twice out of all the episodes that they had. And I'm trying to think how many episodes. Was it 9 or something like that? 8 or 9 episodes? And I'm just like, what am I watching here? I'm like, what is this? I'm like, this is so weird. And I wanted to get through it because people were asking me what I thought about it. And I figured once I got so far in, I'm like, I'm just going to keep going. Because there were things in it that kept my interest. But it was just, it kept being a back and forth of like, wow, I'm into this now. And then they would do something and be like, man, that took me out of it. And it's like, oh, okay, now I'm back into it. And it was just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. I'm like, okay, first of all, stop with the damn music. Okay? Stop with this damn music and stop with this writing, this CW teen angst drama writing. I'm like, this is a fantasy Willow movie. Let's do that. So, and I'll be honest with you. I am surprised that at the end of it, I am interested to see what's going to happen in season 2. I for some reason, with everything that I hated about this show, I'm still interested in it, which is totally not me. Like, I feel like I should have just been like, you know what? I'm done with this. Now, that's me saying this right now. Who knows? When the next season of this comes out, maybe I will. Maybe I'll be like, nah, I'm good. I don't need to come back to this. But look, in that stuff with the accent and the music, maybe that's just me being crazy. But it reminds me of a movie that came out that kind of did the same thing and kind of made me feel the same way. And that was Avatar: The Last Airbender. I really wanted to like that movie. And I wasn't a fan of like Airbender, the cartoon before that, or anything else. I didn't know anything else about Airbender, or well, it was Avatar. And that's what it was called with the cartoon. But, and with the Last Airbender, it was, you had these American actors, these kids, and they talked like American kids, and it just took you out of it. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but it really just, I don't know. It just feels like it makes it feel cheap, the production. Or maybe not cheap. I don't even know how to describe it. So I guess what I'm saying is, if any of you guys feel the same way, write in the comments down below if you're seeing this on YouTube, because is it just me? When you guys watched that, did you kind of feel the same way when without the accents or whatever and the writing? Did this feel a little CW? I don't know. But it was a beautiful show. It was, it was put together fairly well. I am curious to see where it goes, and I know they're going to make another season. I don't know how much longer we have to wait for that. I don't think it's going to be 2 years like Lord of the Rings, but hopefully it won't be. But yeah, so I mean, I guess that's all I had to say about it. I mean, I didn't want to. I'm not trying to bash on it or anything, but it just wasn't it really wasn't my cup of tea. But I'm still interested in it. And if that doesn't make any sense, I don't know what to tell you guys. Anyway, moving on. Well, guys, I will tell you one show that I really do like, and that's Star Wars: The Bad Batch. I was a big fan of the Clone Wars. I thought it made, the sequel or the prequel movies seem a little bit better when they filled in the gaps of what was going on in between, the Clone Wars, the movie, and Revenge of the Sith. I really thought that, the story that it portrayed there and in between, the Separatists and the Republic, that whole thing, that whole dynamic in the Sith and the Jedi, I thought that worked really well, and it helped out the prequels a little bit where they were lacking. Well, I mean, in parts. I mean, it didn't. They still weren't good movies. That being said, Bad Batch is one of those shows where normally I would think that I would say, why do we need this? Why do we need this show? Do I need this? Yes, evidently I did. And I really enjoy this. The first season, I thought it was okay. But the second season, I'm really enjoying it. I feel like I have a little bit more of a investment in the characters here. I really enjoy, seeing that time between, the kind of the remnants of the Republic and the last of the clones, and transitioning over to what the Empire ultimately becomes and what we see in the original movies, the Star Wars movies. So there are a lot of things to like about the Bad Batch. That being said, if you're not a fan, I get that. It's not something that you need to watch to follow along in probably what's going to come later. But, I mean, I really enjoy the writing. I really enjoy, just the storylines. I think it works really well. Let's see. Yeah. Well, the one thing I wrote down here is, what I really enjoy is like the little universe that they've kind of built for themselves here. They're kind of, they kind of dip into the Empire there and they deal with the Empire, but sometimes they're outside the Empire. This is the kind of episodic stuff that I love and that I think a lot of shows and streaming now miss. And I've talked about this before, like, you would have, like with your Stargates and in your Star Trek, you would have these shows that just were all unto themselves, these episodes that were all unto themselves. And sometimes they would have like, a bigger overall arcing storyline that goes throughout the season. But, you would have those individual episodes that were just contained. Whatever was going on in this episode was kind of contained all into itself. And then maybe sometimes that would work its way into the overlying story arc for the whole season later on down the road, but it didn't necessarily mean it had to. And that is what I love about the Bad Batch. They got their own little universe here. So, most of the time, you kind of see where they're going overall. But, they got, these episodes where it's just all contained unto itself. And that's how a lot of, the Clone Wars was too. And I love that because it's interesting, because it gives you the freedom to make stories and interesting episodes without being a slave to, continuity every single minute of every single episode to a greater storyline. You can detach from that overall storyline, bring it down here, and we're gonna make an episode over here for a little while, and then maybe over here for a while. Okay, now we're back to the overlying story because ultimately it is moving towards a greater purpose or a greater ending than what these little episodes are. But you still have these little episodes. If that makes sense, I hope it does. If you guys have watched, a lot of sci-fi or a lot of, sci-fi or fantasy, you know what I mean. Those shows that do it like that, that's what makes stuff like that appealing to go back and rewatch it. Because if you have a show, need a little bit of water here. If you have a show that all it does is move down the line from one thing to the other, but you're always pushing the storyline, the overall storyline of the season, and there's just that one arc, and that's all you're doing. To go back and watch it once you've seen it, it doesn't really matter because you already know how it ends up, and it's all towards that one end. So all you're doing, and there's nothing wrong with those shows. That's totally fine. I watch shows like that too, but those shows don't have the replayability that, in my opinion, because you're always just waiting to see what happens at the end of that season. Where episodes like this, you get to sit back and enjoy. You can bring some levity into, the series. You can bring some seriousness. You can bring some emotion into it that maybe differs a little bit from the overlying storyline for the main story arc, I guess you would say. So anyway, so yeah, I mean, I guess that's where I'm going to leave it with those guys. I don't want to really say anything too much about the episodes because this is still going on. These episodes are still coming out, and I don't want to give anything up. But you know what? If you're a Star Wars fan and you really liked the Clone Wars and you liked last season of The Bad Batch, I mean, chances are you're already watching this. But if you haven't and you're wondering what was going on with this, it's definitely worth the watch, guys. So, yep, 2 thumbs up on my end. All right, so you didn't think that we were going to do a whole episode without any gaming. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. Atari likes to come out with... Atari likes to throw its name around with a lot of things. I mean, Atari isn't the same company that we knew. It wasn't the beloved company like from the 70s. Atari, basically, it's just a name now. And, what was it? 3-4 years ago was the Atari VCS, which, I mean, I've never had hands-on with this, but, you never hear about that anymore. And for all intents and purposes, it was an absolute shit show. I mean, not as much as the, Intellivision Amico, but I mean, it wasn't, it didn't do that great. And now, so it was kind of a surprise when I started seeing, hey, Atari's coming out with a new console, and I'm like, wow, this is soon. But then I looked into it, I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, this is a little bit, different, nature of the beast kind of thing here. So what am I talking about here? Let me get to the point here. Atari's coming out with something called the Gamestation Plus, the Atari Gamestation Plus. And basically what this thing is it's a little console. It comes with 1 or 2. Let me see. It doesn't say. It comes with a controller, maybe 1 or 2. And it's an emulation machine. It's a little emulation machine preloaded with, it says 200 plus games. It's made by My Arcade, which My Arcade is kind of like another one of those kind of lower end merchandise companies that, put these little things out, little handheld that, well, that's what I know them from, is they put out these little one game handheld things, and you'll see them like they're impulse buys up at the register at like Best Buy or Walmart or something like that. And I've never had one. I've thought about buying them a couple times, but I heard that the quality isn't that great on them. That's one of those things where it's like, oh, this looks cool, and then you get it home and you start messing around with it, and the quality is not that great. But what do you expect? You just spent like $20 on the thing, so you're not going to get something that's awesome. So this is what this company does. So they're making this, and it's going to be $100, so $99.99. And it's got 200 plus games, and it's going to have 2,600 games, 7,800 games, and Atari arcade games on it. It's got no SD card slot, no Wi-Fi or no Ethernet, and no paddles on the controller. And so I was watching another YouTuber at some convention. I think it might have been, was it E3? Or maybe the Consumer Electronics Show, and they had a booth there, and he was asking him about this, and so a lot of my information came from this. And with the no paddle thing, he said they didn't need it because none of the games were going to require a paddle. Or no, I believe what he said was, the representative from Atari said that there were so few games that would need that they didn't think it would be worth it, which, whatever. So look, first of all, it's so random that it's like 2,600, 7,800 in arcade games. It's like, you're not going to do like the 5,200? I don't know. I mean, that's the thing here that drives me nuts with stuff like this. It's like, why are you doing this? And then you guys do the execution, which shouldn't be hard. I mean, especially if you're like, well, we're going to go and do this, so let's do this. Why don't you include the whole thing? Why do you do that? Why no SD card slot? Why no Wi-Fi? Why no? Is this just all to save money and keep it at the $100 price point? There's no way to upgrade this or whatever. It's just, $100 for just a simple plug and play, that's kind of pricey. You know what I mean? That is really pricey. I don't care what you're getting here. I don't think you're getting that much. 200 plus games, and you're not getting 5,200 games? Now, I don't know if it's HDMI or, well, it better be HDMI. But I would venture to guess that it's HDMI. But on the off chance that it's not, that would really be, crappy. Here's why why I don't think this is a great deal, especially at $100. I like to buy on my YouTube channel. I like to buy stuff off of AliExpress. There's a million and one little emulation computer machines out there, and some are garbage and some are pretty okay, and every YouTuber out there, there's a million YouTubers that are doing reviews on them, but I just love doing the reviews on these things because it's very cool to see like what options there are out there. It just blows my mind, my little kid mind, because it's like, if we would have had this back in the day when I was growing up, I would have been out of my mind excited for all this. And here's the thing, and so I'll spend like $34 on one of these little machines, and HDMI, plug it in, use a USB controller. They usually come with one and usually they're not that great, but I have a couple USB controllers sitting around here that I can use. And with that, they'll usually have a butt ton of games on there. Now, obviously, legally, no. They don't own those games or whatever. But here's the thing. You're Atari. So you should be able to have those games already. You already have those ROMs. Now, if you want to do, and you're only putting out 200 plus games, are you going to have Activision on there? And they wouldn't say. Like, they really haven't been saying what the game list is. Now, as far as when I wrote these notes up, now I wrote these notes up like a week ago. So that's on me for not double checking. And to say that, well, we're not going to put, like, we're going to give you this controller that goes along with it, but we're not going to, it's not going to have a paddle, kind of controller in it. It's just going to be a regular joystick. I don't get that. I mean, how hard would it be to have this thing where the joystick, the controller, or the joystick can turn and become a paddle too? I mean, maybe it is really hard. I don't know. It wouldn't seem like it, but it seems like at $99.99, I'm asking myself, why would you? Why would you buy this when there are so many better options out there if you're looking to buy the games? I mean, like I said, if you're going to do emulation, then there's a million better ways to do it than, the Atari Gamestation Plus. Now, if you're going to pick this thing up just to be a collector and have it, yeah, okay, I get that. But still, at $100, what I would do is I'd probably wait for this thing in about a year to go, or 6 months to go on sale for like, $80 or $70 or something like that. Then yeah, maybe pick it up. But at $100, that's kind of a steep thing to do. And they're also going to come out with, smaller. I want to say, along with this, they're also going to do a line of smaller arcade handhelds, which, that might be interesting. But here's the thing with this too. They just came out with that console version of the Atari 50th anniversary with a lot of these games on there. Now, I have it. I haven't opened it yet because I want to stream it. I want to open it up and get my reaction on a stream. So that may be another week before I do that. But from everything that I've heard, that's pretty okay. I mean, look, these games are not hard to emulate. We've been emulating these things for like ever now. And these things have been on a billion. There's a billion ways to play these, and none of these other, 9,999,999 ways to play it are costing you $100. So, if you're like, wow, I'd really like to play these games, but $100 seems a little steep. Well, congratulations. There are many other ways. Trust me, you can go on Amazon, you can go on eBay, you can go on AliExpress, find these little emulator machines. Trust me, there's going to be more games on there than you'll ever play in your entire life, and they're not going to be $100. I mean, the only thing I would say is if you're going to buy one of those little machines and you want a little bit better controller, that would be where you put your money. But even then, you're probably still only looking at like $60, maybe. But you're still getting way more games. You're still getting way more value for your money. And, the games usually run just as good. Now, I don't know how they're going to run on here, but I mean, if they don't run good on this new console, then, like I said, in conclusion, we've been emulating these things forever. These games are not hard to emulate. I emulate these games around here, 6 different ways. It doesn't matter. This, I'm going to say, is going to probably be a thumbs down for me. Now, I will say the concept art on there of what the rendering of what this is going to look like does look kind of cool. Does it look $100 cool? No. No, it is not. So, yeah. Whatever. If it's interesting for you guys. Oh, it comes out in June 2023. And the pre-orders will be before that. I didn't write it down because at that point I didn't really care. But if you're that interested, I'm sure it's not that hard. Google's a thing to find out. So yeah, there you go. The Atari Gamestation Plus play your Atari games here because we don't play them anywhere else. So I've been a YouTuber for a little bit. I'm very small potatoes, which is fine. It is what it is. I have a very, like I've always said before, I may have a small subscriber base, but it's in a very exclusive subscriber base. You know what I mean? Not everybody can do it, but you can. So please, like and subscribe. Anyway, but every once in a while, you can always tell. It always cracks me up because you can always tell when something's changed in the YouTube policies or the algorithm or whatever. Because I start getting all these in my subscription from other YouTubers. You start seeing them put out videos talking about, YouTube did this and now my videos aren't getting, promoted, and they're not getting, pushed up to where other people could see them, and I'm losing money and my views are going down, which always cracks me. I do feel bad for them, but it's like, at the same time too, you shouldn't be relying, if you're going to be a YouTuber and make your money out of this, you should probably not be just relying on ad revenue. You should be probably relying on something that's a little bit more stable, like getting a Patreon or something. And this is me talking, never having dealt with Patreon as far as making money or anything, but it would seem that way to me anyway. So, but most of the time with this, I'm just like, oh yeah, okay. I'm like, well, what are you going to do? YouTube's going to do what YouTube does. And this has nothing to do with me. So move on. Even me being a small-time YouTuber, it doesn't really affect me. I don't make money off of anything. I don't get that many views, at least enough to where, I can monetize my videos. And I got to imagine, getting an extra $1 a month, is, once I am able to monetize, isn't going to be that much. Anyway. But it is interesting lately because I guess it's like 2 weeks ago, I noticed YouTubers start putting videos out saying, hey, all of a sudden there was these changes. We didn't get notified. And, now, videos are getting either, blocked or, hey, it has to be for like 18 above. And our videos are getting restricted and this and that. So I did kind of take a look into it. And, YouTube's not perfect, but sometimes when YouTube does stuff like this, it kind of annoys the shit out of me a little bit because YouTube's a little bit hypocritical of when of what they will and won't let people see as far as like what's okay to put on there as far as swearing and gore and whatever. And the problem is when YouTube does stuff like this sometimes, like changes the terms and policies of what's okay and what's not okay, a lot of times they're not really good at letting people know, hey, this is coming down the pipeline. So for all of you that make a living off of this, which at this point are a lot of people, maybe, this is something you should be aware of. We're going to give you a month before we change all this, and then you have to be able to make the necessary changes to your channel or to the videos that you have uploaded already that may, be in violation of what this new policy is going to be. Now, I do think that's kind of shitty that, they do this, and now all of a sudden all these videos are, for all intents and purposes, underwater because now, you raise the bar on like what you're expecting, as far as swearing and gore and what you're showing. And now all these videos are non-compliant. It's like, well, what are people supposed to do here? And to them, they're like, well, that's not our problem. That's not an us problem. That's a you problem. Which is really true because what a lot of people got to understand here is, and we'll get to like what I'm talking about. What did they change? Well, let's get to that first. So I guess what they changed is like how often you can swear. Like they have these, and I was really confused on like exactly what they had changed because that's another thing. They don't. It is even when I knew what I was looking for, it was still really hard to find it on the YouTube website, that's funny because it's like, even when I'm looking for it, I have a hard time finding it. So if you're not looking for it, how the hell are you supposed to know what's going on here until your videos start getting flagged? Now, none of mine have gotten flagged because I don't swear a lot necessarily in any of my videos, and I don't really show any gore or whatever. And when I say gore and violence and stuff like that, that's like a lot of these people that show, stuff from these newer games. And yeah, it is really realistic now. But at the same time, too, it's like, hey, these still are games. Should there be restrictions on, kids being able to watch that? Absolutely. Me being a father of a little one, absolutely. And I guess that's what they changed. They changed, the terms of like how much you can swear in so much amount of time. I don't know. I kept seeing different things, conflicting reports on what exactly it is. So I'm not going to say it's this or that. I don't know what the guidelines are. All I know is evidently I'm not breaking them. And then, like how much gore and how much violence you can have on there. And I don't think it necessarily saying that you can't have that on there, but if you're not a YouTuber, when you go to put up a video, you have to when you're uploading, you have to click on some stuff, and it'll ask you, "Hey, is this for kids? Or is it not for kids?" And I always say, "No, it's not for kids." And then, "Hey, is this," because there's a difference between, it's for kids, or because usually if you say it's for kids, then it can be for everybody. Or is it not for kids? And then the one goes, it has to be, and then there's another tier where it's like, it has to be, this has to be just for 18 above. And that says that there's, adult content in there. Not like pornography or anything, but, this has swearing. This may have some mild violence in there that's not okay for, kids under 18. And I'm totally fine with that. I get that. I respect that. But now I guess what they're saying is, some of these games aren't meeting the new criteria, and they have to be relabeled as far as, hey, this video is not only is it not for kids, but now it's 18 and above, which, I would imagine once you do that, it goes out to a lesser audience. It's exposed to lesser people, not as broad of an audience, because now, you're cutting out the people that aren't, 18 and above. And I would imagine that would affect, how many views you're getting, and then obviously your ad revenue from that, none of which affect me at this point. I'm not saying that it won't someday, but so I really don't know how to feel about this. I mean, I do feel bad that, they're doing this. But at this point, I'm kind of feeling too like, well, I do think it's bullshit. I think, I'm like, hey, you knew that this was going to really be a problem for a lot of people, and I think they were just like, well, we're going to do this no matter what, so we might as well just go ahead and throw it out there. I don't want to hear about it. I don't really care. We know we're going to get shit. We're going to get a whole bunch of flack for this either which way. So we're just going to throw it out there and let them figure it out. Which I don't know if that's really what they did, but it feels like that's what they did. And, when you do that and you don't even give people a little bit of a heads up, that's a problem. That's just going to make people more ticked at you. So here's my other thing with them. So like, YouTube will do stuff like this, and and I agree it's great, but they kind of handle it, I think, in a wrong way. They could always handle it in a better way. But here's my problem with that. So, I'm very cognizant of what my son watches, both in gaming, both on YouTube. He loves YouTube. I keep him to kids YouTube 99% of the time. But sometimes I'll let him venture out into regular YouTube. And here's the problem with regular YouTube. okay, for kids, that is that the algorithm or whatever they have that determines what kind of commercials that they show during videos is very inadequate. And that is a big reason why I had to have him stop watching normal YouTube, because I was keeping an eye on the videos he was watching when I realized the big thing that I should have been watching was the ads that came along with those videos, with the okay videos that he was watching, the ones that we approved him to be able to watch. Like he was like, yes, these videos you can watch, because they were putting, now he's, you know, at the time he was what, 6 or 7, you know, when we were kind of letting him dabble a little bit in regular YouTube, but always very, very much keeping an eye on what was going on there. And there would be beer commercials on these clearly kids videos, beer commercials, safe sex videos or commercials, abusive women's hotline, you know, if you're abused. I mean, in which is a great thing to have out there. Not necessarily a thing for 6-year-olds. Especially, you know, nowadays, you know, sometimes what they show on there and not necessarily only what they say, you know, our kids don't need to grow up at that fast at 6, you know. And I remember the one thing that really stopped me was an election year, and they were putting political ads on there that other campaigns were putting on there, and it was getting nasty. And I said, whoa. I remember we were sitting on the couch and I looked over, I'm like, and I'd already made sure that whatever he was watching was okay. And it halfway through the video, it flipped over to like a normal, to an ad. And all of a sudden I just heard out of my ear, I'm just going, wait, what are you watching? And he's like, I don't know, it just came on. I'm looking at it and like, I'm like, whoa. They were talking about abortions and this and that and showing some stuff. And I was like, this is not okay. And I'm like, look, I understand that they have kids YouTube and that's where kids can go and not have to worry about this. But at the same time, too, these same people that are like adamant about, well, hey, this is how it is now. And, you know, we got to protect everybody on here. If you're going to let videos like that are for kids on there, then YouTube, you got to do a better job at making sure what ads you're putting on there and what commercials you're having on there for kids are appropriate. Because let me tell you something, Jack, how it was, I'm not sure how it is now. This is how it was, you know, a couple years ago. Wasn't good enough by a long shot. So now I'm getting a little heated here because it does tick me off. And if it's changed and it's better now and you guys remedied that, I apologize. But I'm going off by what I know. And, you know, you guys claim to be, you know, the purveyors of making sure kids are okay. And I remember when I first got into YouTube, you know, that whole new COPA law and everything that you guys put in there to make sure that kids were safe. I want to, and the sticklers about, I want to say, maybe you need to look at, you know, the algorithm that's saying, hey, we're not differentiating between a video that's for an adult and a video that's for a kid on YouTube. And I know you guys can do it. And maybe you already did. And if you did, my hat's off to you guys. But as of, I think it was like 2 years ago, that was not the case at all. And that's when I had to put the kibosh. I said, no more regular YouTube, because, you know, it was already hard enough to make sure that, like, you know, when he got done with the video, that I did approve that it wasn't like going and auto playing into a video that he shouldn't be watching. But it was just too hard, especially with you know, some of these ads that they were putting on there. I'm like, that's not okay. So, and I will say that I do enjoy kids YouTube. Like, it's a nice place for kids to go. I think they do a really good job with that app, and I am grateful that they have that other app for smaller kids, and it's a safe place for people to go. But at the same time too, if you're going to allow videos that are clearly meant for kids on your normal YouTube station, then you should have a way to not have, adult content ads on there, commercials, or not let videos that are clearly meant for kids be on YouTube. Just have them all be on kids' YouTube. And if it's changed, I apologize. Like I said, I don't know that it has, but I'm just saying, as of 2 years ago, it wasn't. And that's all I'm going to say. I hope that, these YouTubers can figure it out. I give my hats off to these guys that quit their jobs and do YouTube full time. That's got to be scary, and that's takes some big cojones to go and do that. To be able to maintain a level of creativity and interest in your viewership and have it all fall on your shoulders is, my hat's off to you guys. And, I really feel like sometimes that YouTube doesn't take an interest in what is going on its platform as far as people and content creators and working with them as far as like being able to, resolve copyright issues between two people without it being a big hassle, with talking to people and be like, hey, just cultivating, what am I saying here? Cultivating like a rapport with YouTubers and a community that of content creators that makes it a great place for people to come and express themselves. But at the same time too, making it safe for everybody. And I got to believe, with millions and millions of people on there, it's probably a gigantic order to do. And I'm not going to say that it's not. But at this point, this isn't something that's new. Okay, YouTube just didn't come out yesterday. So, and I think the way it has grown and the way that it is evolved, I think it's time, YouTube, that you start talking to these guys. And I'm not talking to a guy like me who does this as a hobby. I'm talking about like people out there that really do put time into their videos and make them borderline, professional and all this, because really that's a lot of what, has people coming back to you. Otherwise, you're just another TikTok. And in that case, TikTok's going to eat your sandwich for you. So, and that's all I got to say about that. Well, I guess the last thing I want to talk about, I'm going to kind of throw this out to you guys and see what you guys think. I had made videos. I was totally on board when this new generation of consoles had come out, and now they've been out for 2-3 years. I still don't have one. I've had opportunities to buy them, but after I got my Xbox One X, I wasn't all that excited about where it was going, as far as when you buy it and buy games and you put it in there and you got to update and all this other stuff, and it just didn't feel like, oh, I get this game, I put it in, then you just go and play. And maybe that's just me being an old fuddy-duddy and just being used to how it was before. But I kind of was like, maybe I'm just not going to get a new system, and I'm just, new games aren't for me. Just the new gaming era isn't for me. And I kind of feel like I'm being left behind, especially since I'm a guy who has pretty much a gaming channel. I feel like, well, maybe I need to just put my big boy pants on and go and buy one of these things. And I kind of feel at the end of the day, maybe I'm going to regret it if I don't. I don't know. So here's my question to you guys. Because I do want to be able to talk about new games coming out and make videos about them and all that jazz. So here's my question to you guys. Do you guys think that I need to get a new console? Okay. Would you suggest that I do? And I guess my other question would be too, which one should I get? Because I'm really, I mean, I have PlayStations. I think the newest PlayStation I have is a PS3, but I really kind of like the ecosystem that the Xbox has come up with like Game Pass and whatever else. So my question to you guys is, because I think I am going forward here, buy a new console, and probably pretty soon, as soon as I can find one. Which one should I get? Should I get the Xbox Series X, or should I get the PlayStation PS5? I don't know. And that's all I got to say about that, I guess. I just feel like I'm getting left behind. I feel like there are games on there that I do want to play, especially games that are going to be coming out, namely the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, because I loved that game. And what was it, that other one, Squadrons or whatever, that I've been playing. So I don't know. I feel like I should. I feel like I should get one of those consoles coming up, and I feel like I'm leaning towards the Xbox. But if there's anybody out there that has a PlayStation 5, or if there's anybody out there that's just a player and has both of them, let me know what you think. What do you think of either or? What do you think of the PlayStation 5? You know, because I do have people, friends that have the Xbox, and they really enjoy it. So, but I think that's I think that's where we're going to end it for today, guys. You know, I feel bad for you guys, because sometimes I feel like I'm just jibber-jabbering for like an hour, and that you guys either just tuned out at some point, or just are like putting your finger to your head, to your temple, and like acting like you're shooting yourself in the head. Like, this guy just will not shut up. But I will point out the fact that if you are doing that, it's your fault. First of all, I already told you that it was the worst podcast ever. That's in the name. And the fact that you're the one that still clicked on it, and you're the one that still comes back for the hurt, that's on you, Mac, you know. So, but anyway, it was fun getting back to it. I promise next time we're going to do a little bit more about gaming. There was a couple things that I wanted to talk about, but I'd had these notes for a while. I kind of wanted to get, you know, the Lord of the Rings and Willow off my mind, you know, and out there, and answer some of those people's questions that were wondering, hey, you know, what'd you think of that, those shows? But I hope all of you guys had a wonderful time. I always enjoy hanging out with you guys and talking about all the nerd stuff that we talk about. Anyway, so that's it, guys. That's it. Go home. Go home. You know, good night and goodbye. Let's go home. Wasn't that Ferris Bueller? I think that was Ferris Bueller. You guys are still here? Go home. The movie's over. The podcast is over. All right, guys. Well, that being said, I'm just going to shut the hell up. So, good night and goodbye.
I did a full spread for Playgirl magazine. I mean spread, man. I pulled my butt apart and stuff, and I was totally nude, and it was weird. I mean, you probably didn't hear about it because I went under the name of Mike Honcho.